Just let us know, because I'll make
There's too many people.
Yeah, call the session to order. Pledge allegiance, please.
but not for last night, yesterday.
Pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, you did the budget improvements this year, right? With NTN.
Okay. We are here for our first of many sessions in the budget. I've asked Bob to come today with a presentation on basically the foundation of the budget, the assumptions, what's in the book, so that we're not, some of us are brand new to this process, some of us have been through it 6 times. Dan Statursky could not be with us today, so we will be a family of 6 at this point. And Bob, with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, good afternoon. A couple just quick housekeeping items. If you, one of the reasons I'm going to sit for the meeting is the new mics work better than that one, and folks from yesterday's meeting said it was hard to hear. If you all, I tried to tilt all the mics towards you, they will pick you up, and they're working now. Well, they won't tilt it so they hear you. So.
When I want you to hear me,
Anyway, so I'll pass out a copy of the presentation. Right. My intent is to do just a general overview for the budget. We have at least 4 other opportunities. 2 days next week with the Budget and Finance Committee, the 2 days following that week with you all, where they're pretty much all-day sessions to go item by item, tab by tab. So the goal of today's meeting is an overview, what went into the budget, some of the factors we considered when building the budget. We'll start with the general overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process we used, just so everybody understands the steps it took to get us to this point. Critical considerations that we put into the book. Budget book itself. I'm going to go over some things because we made some changes this year that we thought would be helpful, but at least one didn't get all of them. I want to make sure they're all in there accurately. We're going to talk about the key elements, the budget components, a brief comparison, and then I'll open up for any questions. My hopes is not to keep you too long, to kind of go get the general overview, and I'd ask to hold most of the questions till the end. That way I get through at least this part of it. Okay? Just a real quick, I didn't do a slide for it, the process we used when we build the budget. It starts in September timeframe. Start meeting with the department heads. In case you don't know, we have a regular staff meeting. And during those staff meetings, we talk about things that are happening throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the quarter. One of the things we start in our September meetings is discussing budgets. First thing that I always ask the department heads to do is set out on a path to identify 3 different items when they're looking at their budget. What are their needs? Like, what do they need to stay in operation? What are their wants? Which basically, you've met all your needs, now what's kind of next up, what would you like to see in your budget? And then the third item that we always talk about is desires. If money was no object, what would you include in your budget? It just gets the thinking process going, not to limit to any 1 or 2 items. Think on a broad picture. How do you operate your section? What do you do in your section? And how can you do it better? So those items start long before we get any budget guidance from either the board or the B&F committee. The department heads start to build those items. They start to share those with us through the month of September into October. When I say with us, they start coming into my office, into our, we're using for the 2nd year in a row, we're using the cloud system. So what the department head can do is download their budget items, their department, onto their local computer, do their work, and then upload it. When it's uploaded, then Art can just bring it back down and incorporate it into his budget. Okay, so it's a process we started last year. It's working. I can tell you it's always as smooth as when you have changes in access and those points. But we got through it, and I think it's working well for us. So from there, then I start to sit with individuals to go through their budget. This is a third time we're going through it. And when I do that, I invite Art in. And we kind of go through item by item, piece by piece of their budget to understand what they're looking for, what the impact is, why they feel they need certain things, or why they felt they included something, what their personnel looks like, how it impacts them, what their year, we kind of go over again what their year looked like, and then what we can do to improve. So we're constantly kind of massaging that to figure out what the best, how do we draw the best information out. From there, Art and I then start to really scrub it. We do one more look at it. We get it back to them for final review to see if there's any criticals we missed, and then we pull all the pieces together. Okay, so that's how it works through up from the department level up to where you all actually eventually get the books. Okay? Okay, when we built the budget this year, there were a couple items that we really, really wanted to pay special consideration to. We wanted to make sure we were doing responsible budgeting, but being conscious of the future, not cutting off short in any way. We're jeopardizing kind of the long-term look that we've really taken in the last few years as an approach to the budget. In doing so, we're still very sensitive to the current economic conditions and the impact it has on some of our membership. So we made sure that was at the forefront when we're looking at the numbers. We also, because of all the expenditures we have going on right now, all the major capital expenditures, we really looked hard at not adding any new capital items in the budget this year. There were two things that we really, really tried to focus on when we tried to build the budget. All right, some things I want to go over in your books. All right, I have they're the executive summary page. Okay. This is to replace the one you have in your book. I appreciate Mr. Clark pointing out there was an item on he emailed me a couple days ago. He identified on page 2 when we were looking at the payroll cost, where there was a change in payroll cost. Unfortunately, I didn't have my book in front of me, but when he asked the question, it was concerning budget versus actual. He had picked up on the fact that the 1.7 was actually against budgeted levels and not actual levels. So I made sure I clarified that in the updated form, and that's what I passed out. I will also make sure next week the Budget and Finance Committee has a copy of that. All right, so what this does, is basically explain what some of the things we're going to cover today. Just kind of a general overview of what the budget included, what we were thinking when we built it, and some of the highlights of it. The first sections, and again, I know some of you have been through this a lot, but for those who haven't, I want to make sure I just kind of cover the highlights. The very beginning of your book, the first handful of pages to include tab 1 are summary pages. What they do is they give you a lot of analytics from not only what our current budget looks like, but from other years' budgets. It brings some comparisons in last year's actuals versus last year's forecast, where we are now, and what kind of changes that may have occurred. So that's what you're going to see at the beginning of your budget book. I know most of you at least pulled it last week because you've been calling me with questions, but I just want to make sure for those who haven't looked at these in detail to understand what the beginning has. Okay, the next sections that we get to, starting with section 2, become the tabs for each of the individual departments. Okay? What breaks down is the first page, okay, is the overall general page for that department. Okay? The next page that you will have, and I'm in tab 2, just so we can follow along. The General Administration gives revenue details. Okay? Third one, any payroll associated with this particular department. Now, the board are the ones that actually receive this one page is the one that the board receives. What we do is we do a collective page. When the B&F looks at it, we don't break down individual.
I'll make sure you're good.
I'm looking good.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
I want to make sure we don't want to get ahead.
I got you.
That's why we put our extra.
Exactly, yeah, thank you.
Okay, keep going.
Okay? The next item you'll get to are, in this particular tab, just some selected budget details out of this particular area. Each section, each tab follows the same process as you go through. The thing that's new this year that I want to point out, if you flip 2 pages back,
You get one.
okay, something that we included that we had not included here, Marty is going to keep flipping like no, the other way.
What page?
There's no page number on this particular. You'll see a big red stop sign.
You just went by it.
It's right after page 5.
You just went by it. Stop.
Okay. There's a big red. Does he have it? Tom didn't have one in his.
I didn't have it.
Okay.
I have one on mine.
Okay. I have some extras. Marty, if you and Tom see me afterwards, I'll make sure you have them in the right spot.
Me too. Are you in tab 1?
I'm in tab 2.
Tab 2. Oh, 2, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Correct.
That's the first of the other.
Okay, what we did this year, which was different than anything in the past, we're trying to make it easier when you're looking at your books. We put a big red stop sign on items that were not included. They were considered in that section, but they were not included in the budgeted items. Now, this is also found. Yes. So this is also found at the beginning when it says no capital items and later in the book. But what we tried to do is also include it in here to make it easy when you were flipping through the tabs to go, oh, I have that or I don't have it. Okay? So that was the purpose of the stop, clearly delineated. Now you'll notice, and for those that have them, anything in front of that stop sign was included. There are no new capital items included in the budget this year. There are some replacement reserve items, but they would be in front of that stop. Second thing I want you to notice is the capital project worksheet. What we did was the new capital project worksheet, for those who have been through this before, it's pretty much the very similar format that we had the last 2 years. We automated it this year. When I say automated, they all look pretty much the same because the departments, they open this up and they just type in the information and they can electronically transfer it. Okay? So it just made for smoother content. The other is where we had areas even in things that weren't included. If we had any documentation supporting it, either pictures, background information, any reasoning behind it, we tried to include it. Whether we included it in the budget or not, we included some of the background information. So we tried to do it and leave it in each section. If you recall last year, the items that came out, we just put them all in the very back of the book. And then the question would come out, well, which budget would it impact and how would it impact? It could get a little confusing. So by putting it in each section, you're able then to keep everything in that section very clear. What we kept in, what we didn't keep in, what was reserve replacement, what was new capital. This particular case, no new capital items. So that gives a breakdown if you go through tab by tab when you're looking at this, how this was laid out. Okay, and if you don't have the stop signs, at the end, just get with me. It will take 5 minutes. I'll be able to get those sorted out. Okay, the next one, you'll skip through all the different individual tabs. You'll get the next 3. I just want to identify for you. Tab 21 is the reserve tab. Okay, it breaks down where the reserves sit, and it also gives you a little bit of a history on the reserves. Okay. The next one, which is the capital tab, okay, gives you an overall summary of the capital. The 5-year plan tab, not to be confused with the 5-year funding plans. Okay? The 5-year plan tab is always done at the end Once everything's all put in, everything gets wrapped up and puts in there, and all it is projections. So if anyone has a book from prior years, you can go right to the back, and that's where the 5-year plan is. It's not to be confused with the 5-year funding plan for capital major projects. Okay?
No, explain that again.
Okay.
Right over my,
Okay. You've heard us speak about a 5-year funding solution for major capital projects.
right,
Okay. What I want to make sure is we understand is that's not what this tab is for.
right.
When this is complete, and you don't have anything in this tab, there's nothing, you look at tab 23,
Under capital,
tab 23,
nothing back.
there's nothing there yet. That's what I'm saying. You'll get that later on as we go through this process. We'll end up inserting that for you. And that just gives 5-year projections. And those who've had them in the past know that's where that is. Okay? But just didn't want to, for those
Oh, no,
benefits.
missing something.
No, that's why I want to make sure I went through it.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, some key elements with our, so that explains the book. And the elements are the pieces in the book, the components, why and how we put that together. Key elements I want to point out that were considered as we went through building this budget. No new capital items are in this budget this year. Okay? Significant consideration of all major capital projects underway contributed to our decision to refrain from recommending any new capital expenditures. We basically took a look at the amount of money that was going out for yacht club, golf, drainage, the pool. And we said, this year we need to kind of take a half a step back, take a breath, and just slow down a little bit to make sure we're not putting anything new in there. So that was a major factor when we're looking at the budgets. You will notice in the budget this year there's a 5% membership fee increase. These items, and it's mixed in different parts of the budget, but basically despite ongoing increases in cost to offer programs, our membership fees have not increased. Okay? So what we did was we put a 5% increase in those areas that have not had an increase in recent years. 3 notables: beach club parking, marina slip fees, and weekly pool and tennis memberships all had increases in the last few years. They were excluded from the recommendation of the 5% increase. The majority of the other programs had a minimum of 5 and some even more years with no increase. So we're offering products and programming, but we're not increasing pricing for it. So we did a modest 5% increase this year. We did stick with the 5-year funding plan. It provides the continuation of the 5-year funding plan for major repairs, renovations, upgrades to the association's major physical assets. It was requested by the board of directors, and it was also reinforced as an item when we presented for the, as you all know, for the referendum. It was how our funding solution for the project. So it was reaffirmed through that count. We've included, at request of the board, summary business plans. There were no new items introduced, so we didn't have any new business plans to submit. We did introduce, and they are in your book, summary business plans for the yacht club and aquatics. Those plans included a general description of the program, a SWOT analysis, marketing and sales strategies, a brief financial summary, and critical success factors. The details for golf were provided different format, but they were provided yesterday by the Casper team. I didn't want to provide them ahead of it because I felt it was more appropriate for them. They had provided that to us, but it was more appropriate for them to share it with you at the meeting.
When do you want our questions and or comments on this stuff? By email later?
Well, if you have anything about the process, you ask me at the end of, when I wrap up. I don't have that many slides today. We'll talk about it at the end. And then any additional questions deeper, if you email, because then I'll respond to everybody so we all have the answers. Payroll cost. Salary and wages excluding payroll cost, which represent our most significant cost in our budget, increased by 1.7% over last year's budgeted item and 5.4% over this year's estimated actual. That was one of the changes in the executive summary that I had here, but I didn't have. I had it on my slide presentation, but not in the book. Marty picked up on that, and thank you for that. Also included in this year's budget was a funding mechanism for the drainage program underway right now. And Art, one thing I forgot to ask you, I double-checked the 552. Was that the right number? 553 or 552? I may have missed it by 1,000. I noticed it just where I came over. But anyway, that's either 552 or 553, but we amortized to pay 553. I thought I caught that before I left. So just make note of 553. But what we did was yes, sir.
Where's that here?
It's where it should be in the reserve component.
Section
Got it? Got it?
Yep. Okay. Okay. I want to do a breakdown. Again, I'm trying to make sure everybody understands all the components of the budget. Now that I've talked about what we did, our thought processes that got us to where we are, explain the book itself so you understand what it is you're looking at. I wanted to break down a little bit further the components of the budget, okay, that may not stand out to you when you're looking at the things that impact our annual assessment. So, 3 critical components, okay? One is our operations. The second is our capital. And then the third piece is deficit reduction. And we'll break those down for you a little bit more. But I need you to understand it can be confusing at times. It really doesn't need to be. If you think of it in those 3 elements, it's a pretty simplistic way to look at it. Operational, capital, and then anything we're trying to do to reduce deficits that we may have incurred. I'm going to give you a couple examples just so we're okay with this. First thing, when I talk about operations, okay, operations is inclusive of all of the items, fire, EMS, police department, public works, to include general maintenance, all the workers of public works. Admin includes GM, finance, membership, marketing, public relations. Recreation Parks is also as one of the operating departments. CPI. So these are all the kind of nuts and bolts of what we're doing, all fall under operations. The other part that hits that component of the budget are the amenities. Golf, including food and beverage, Turns Grill. Yacht club, aquatics, tennis, beach club parking, and marinas. All these items on this list fall under the operations for the organization. So I thought it was important to pull those out because they can be confusing when you look for the budget book. Well, which one's operations, which one's not? This will give some clarity and say, okay, think of all the components, all the folks working, that's falling under the operational side. The next 2 pieces that we had, you have your operations, next one's capital. It's confusing sometimes when we talk about capital, whether it's reserve capital or new capital. When I say new capital, we're buying something that we didn't have before. It's a new item for us. Example, if we were buying, and we're not, so don't look for it, but if we had a need for another police car, a new one that we don't have now, and we had one that was 10 years old with X number of miles on it. Well, the one that was 10 years old with X number of miles would be a reserve replacement item. The other one, a new vehicle that's not replacing one, then becomes new capital item. Okay? So that's how you differentiate when you're looking at the reserve component versus new capital items. Okay? And then any debt principal payments are included in that capital item. Okay? South Fire Station. We have a small loan on it. Okay?
Southside Fire Station, that's not included.
Southside Fire Station. Yeah, the fire department. It's in the book, but again, I want to make sure I point some of these out. Okay, the last component, okay, that is in the budget, and I try to break them this way because they also follow the financial statements when you go to look at them. I try to eliminate some of the confusion there. Last one is, there's a plan that was put in place, the board exercised a few years ago as a reduction plan, operating deficit reduction plan, okay? Peeling off a small component of the assessment to go into a fund that would reduce any deficit that we had built. And when I thought about that, all right, how do I explain this so it makes a little more sense? Well, I looked at I looked at a 6-year history. I want to break that down for you, just so you understand what that deficit recovery is. For fiscal years 07, 08, 09, okay, for those 3 years, I know some of you have seen this before, so I apologize for going over it again, but for those who haven't, I think it's important to understand. We had an operating deficit combined for those 3 years of almost $500,000 for one reason or another. I'm not pointing at one, it had built up to that point, okay? Plan was replaced with this operational deficit recovery program to chip away at that, so we didn't have that sitting out there. Conversely, 10, 11, and 12, we've had operating surpluses, okay? So what that means when you're looking at the operational side, we're operating efficiently to a point where we're actually surplus.
How much?
$364,400.
Surplus?
Yes. It's on your slide.
Okay. I didn't see.
Yep. Okay? So if you took the snapshot of that 6-year history, okay, and you just overlaid that. Yes, sir.
Have we lost the 12 deficit again?
Well, if you allow me to get through the slides, you're going to, or look at them, that's why I give them to you ahead of time. You're going to see,
It needs to be ahead of time, just got this.
Okay, well, again, Marty, I want to be very factual and accurate.
Well, then put the correct 2000.
Right. What I'm going to say, Mr. Clark, I'm going to say it one more time. Please allow me to finish,
Go ahead.
and then I'll be able to answer anything. What happens, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the operating deficit. Fact of the matter, these are factual numbers. You can go and look at our year-end statements. Okay, these are accurate. I had 2 other people review them before I put them on the slide. It's not meant to go at anybody. It's just trying to explain what the deficit was. Now, in that 6-year history, you see a swing of almost 900,000, 864,000 from 07 to 12. If you look at losses versus surpluses, that combination is approximately $850,000. Just when you're talking about operations. So I just want to make sure, because there seems to be a lot of confusion from that. Now, there's an important factor that happened last year that we have to address. I think that's what Mr. Clark's trying to do.
Yes.
I'm getting to that. Okay, 2012, okay, we had an operating surplus. Again, it was in the last slide. We had a surplus of $151,000. All those components, fire, police, operations, over 150,000 surplus. We had something that came to a head. It came to finalization last year. You all remember what it was? Non-recurring debt charge. Okay, this was the unrelated business income, taxes and interest on the beach club parking operation. If you all remember, that became final. So there seems to be confusion about losses, surpluses, deficits. We had an operational surplus, but when you have the one item that had accumulated over 10 years, we had to absorb that. Hence $459,000 negative to budget. So we did operate operationally in a positive manner. We just had to absorb that last year. What that meant to us, if you take the two, you put them together, we're 307,762 in the negative. It's in the financial statement. The year-end financial, you can go right there and validate the numbers. So like I said, I made sure I had them right before I put them up here. Now the way to say it, just for clarity, 3 years, accumulation of $500,000 in debt. The next 3-year block, 364 surplus, positive to budget, but then you have to take out the 459 that we finally came to conclusion with the IRS. Something 10 years, added up, stepped in, had to account for it. Okay? So we have been operating, and I'm not sure why, well, financials can be confusing, so I understand why people get confused with it. So I shouldn't say it that way.
I'm not at all confused. You know, the Redskins won the football game if you don't include the third and
Mr.
fourth
Clark,
quarter.
are you, Mr. Clark, I'm not debating. I want to get through it. Okay?
Well, I don't want to get through it
Ocean
without
Park.
understanding it.
Okay, is there something understanding this? I'll be happy to answer something to that specific.
Okay.
I don't want
If we
to.
look at the last 6 years, just doing short math, no hocus and pocus, we're at a minus 443,154. Is
Okay,
that correct?
Mr. Clark, I'm not going to go into that with you right now.
You're going to do what I want to do.
No, sir, absolutely not. I'm following what I was told to do, and I said I'd do it over.
Who told you to do it?
I was directed by the board president and the rest of the board.
Tom, do you mind if I can answer this question or not?
I'm not prepared to answer it because I haven't
It's
said...
simple math. 5, 7,
All right,
6
well,
years.
first, I'm not raising my voice. Secondly, I'm not going to be railroaded because you want to use numbers that don't match the financial statement.
I want to use numbers that do match the financial statement.
Mr. Clark,
Well,
I will be
may I
happy.
suggest, hold on,
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes.
may I suggest that we send this slide through this,
Yes.
but
Huge.
that
I will
none of
follow
these
up.
questions get ignored. They sit down and they're worked out, I don't care, close
Happy to
closet
do it.
room until they're resolved.
No, we'll do it, and I said I'll do it next year. Anything I don't get today answered, I will have answers for you.
Yeah, I have many questions too, and,
Okay.
and they're, you know, I'd like more time to work them out my own.
Sure.
But if I can't, I want to talk to you and I want to talk to Art.
Sure. Okay, some other things that we need to understand with the budget, okay? When we're looking at assessments, because that's the next piece we really have to look at. We're looking at the assessment, now we understand the components of the budget, what went into the budget, what our thought process was. How do we compare when you're looking at budget to other like areas around us? And I say like, there's no one like Ocean Pines with everything we have to offer, but you still have to look at municipalities, you still have to look at other HOAs. So I thought that might be something that would be helpful for us when we're looking at the budget. First, how are we the same? Well, we're all in Worcester County, so we're going to pay the Worcester County tax rate same way. We're all in Maryland, so we pay the Maryland rates. And you can go right to the site to pull up this information. Basically, 0.77 per $100 of assessed value for the county, and 0.112 per $100 of your assessment for the state. That's where we're the same. Let me show you some things that are a bit different. And again, they're in your books, so you'll have these. Snow Hill, okay, as a comparison, I started with the towns. Snow Hill, 0.86 per $100 of the assessment. Pocomo, Berlin, and Ocean City. So what I did was go through and look at, okay, if I lived in the town of Berlin, in the town, so I have the town taxes, what would they be? Interesting comparison. Well, $200,000 house. I used a round number. I know some home values are higher or lower depending on what part of the county you're in. 2 seem like a pretty reasonable mid-ground. 200,000 divided by 100 would be 200 units or 200 pieces to measure by, times 0.68, which would mean your taxes, if you know 0.68 happens to be Berlin, $1,360 for your town taxes using the tax rates, okay? As a comparison, as you know, we're not a town, so we don't have tax rates, but we do have an assessment, and quite frankly, we're paying it, so it might as well be a tax. If you look at it, you're looking at our assessment is the lowest of the 4 components. Now, there's some things I want to point out that I thought were interesting that I just delved a little bit deeper into. The Pocomoke one, I put 0.90 for NOO, non-owner occupied property. Okay, so Pocomoke, if you don't live there, and this was, I thought, important for us as a comparison, we have a lot of our folks that don't live here as a primary residence. So they would be paying an even higher rate than if you just calculate it this way. Ocean City at the 0.4585 per 100 is just slightly above where we, at least proposed, where our assessment is. But then they also have room taxes and other condo fees that get associated based on where you live in Ocean City. So those I couldn't calculate because they differ everywhere. I didn't want to make a number up for you. So that was, I thought, an interesting comparison to some of the towns around here. Then I looked at some of the HOAs in the area and what they pay, okay, for the local HOAs. Glen Riddle, okay, they pay $2,900. Oyster Harbor, $1,180. These are annual. I made sure they were all equal. Oyster Harbor is in West Ocean City, for anybody that doesn't know, near the elementary school. Decatur Farms is in Berlin. Indian Creek is at South Point. And Lighthouse Sound is right off of 90, just to give some perspective. Now, one of the things you have to look at is each of these includes some different things. Glen Riddle is an example. They'll cut your grass. Required. Okay. Indian Creek on the flip side, they're just paying for lights. So they vary based on what they offer. Oyster Harbor has a pool and a small clubhouse included in that fee. But I thought it was important if we're looking at what our assessment proposed would be, how do we fit in with everybody else? Well, if you look at where we fall, we're still on the lower end. Again, proposed assessment. Obviously, we're lower with our current assessment. Okay. Again, general overview is what I was asked to present today. I promised to keep it short and do the overview. Some things I want to make sure that everyone knows, and I have a handout for you. We have a schedule coming up, okay? And what we did was print a calendar. There seemed to be confusion. Now, I know Dan said he was going to send one out as well, so please, I'm not preempting his. I just want to make sure everyone had a copy. But they are the next meetings that are coming up that impact the budget. Next week, we begin budget talks with the Budget and Finance Committee. We're going to do them here. We'll be sitting right here doing them. We will go tab by tab, detail by detail. I see the chair of the committees in the back there kind of getting the overview now, so I appreciate you being here, Dennis. That's the 14th and 15th. They're pretty much all day on Monday, and we have 9 till noon on Tuesday, but it's really the afternoon I've left open, so it'll go as long as we need to. We've got about an hour apiece budgeted for each of the items. Board working sessions are the 24th and 25th. They start at 9 a.m. each day. Board feedback, and I don't know if the board's going to want to sit down and have a meeting, or if it's something you're going to just provide me in writing. I just don't know, but we had it on there. We'll do the public hearing. Now, please note, Country Club...
Let me clarify the board feedback to make sure we understand. That is the guidance of what we want to see changed in the budget prior to Bob going to the public session. And then keep going, there's a possible follow-up after
Yes, so you'll give me any change. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify too, during these working sessions, to points that we find that need to be adjusted one way or the other, Bob is present, we discuss it at that point, so that there's no surprises on that date then.
No, it shouldn't be.
Good.
So I'll get the board feedback, and then we'll incorporate with any of the board input to put together into the presentation that will go out to the public on February 2nd. Now note the change, that's back at the community center. Okay, so we'll do a public presentation that Saturday at the community center. From there, we've scheduled, again, tentatively, another working session back here. If during that session, again, we're laying it out to our membership, if there's feedback that you all have thoughts on, we're going to get back together to discuss, are there any other changes you'd like to make based on that feedback? And then from there, we have a regular board meeting on the 23rd, and that's when you'll vote up or down on the budget. Okay? So that's the 35,000-foot view. I didn't go into details tab by tab because we're going to have a minimum of 4 full days doing that. anything about the process, about the information presented, about the next meeting, anything related to the overview that I provided to you.
And to clarify, if we have a meeting tentatively scheduled for February 6th, that gives us 17 full days if we need to continue working before we have the final budget presented for vote on the 23rd. So we have quite a cushion built into the plan in case we need it for more further work in multiple days. And my understanding of the Budget and Finance Committee, you're going to go department by department.
Correct. And then, of course, there's time in there. If you all say, hey, let's have another meeting, that's up to you all.
Well, plus, the public is invited to attend any of these sessions.
Yes.
They're all open, meaning public, meaning us.
And the meeting the 29th, if it occurs in January, that would be here at the country club.
The 29th, here's the follow-up, it would be here.
It would be here, okay.
Yes.
Specific board questions that I would answer by email when we address them to Orange.
Well, and if you'll send them to me, I'm going to address them at our meetings openly, so I want everybody to have the same information. Here's the question, here's the answers.
Well, if I have a question, like, for example, I don't necessarily, but tomorrow, I mean, I don't want to wait 2 weeks to the next meeting because I'm trying to figure it out. I mean,
The only thing I want to avoid is the daily question that, if 7 people are asking me questions, and then you add another 7 from the committee, and we start to get peppered with the same questions, it's very, very inefficient. That's why I'm trying to give you the overview now. If there's any, we will certainly try to do that. I just don't, duplicating of the efforts just doesn't make
I
sense.
think I'd be, considered enough to save them up and
That's fine.
send them out.
I mean,
in one shot. I just don't want to have this book in my possession and stare at it
That's fine.
and not understanding it for that amount of time.
And
No,
then you'll
and
just
there
send
are
it
things
all.
that-
You'll-
Yes, but I will
Dave asked the
answer them,
question,
yes.
Send it all.
Yes.
That way,
And I'll send the question to all.
yeah,
That's
and then
fine.
it helps all of us.
But your intent, and just to make sure we're clear here, when you get the questions, there will be a period of time to answer them, but it won't be 2 weeks. It'll be a day or two or whatever.
Yeah, but that's my biggest concern is the peppering of questions back to back to back, and not. I don't want to act like I don't care about the questions. It's not all the case. We have a long process built in place so we can field these and answer them collectively. That way we don't get lost in there. Well, he missed this one. That's all.
Let's just be clear on the expectation. What is the turnaround time if we, as Dave said, it would be good if we can bundle the questions together.
It would.
It's a good idea if we do that. But what's the turnaround time on?
As you know, with the questions we tend to receive, they can come in multiple levels, like layer to layer to layer. Sometimes it takes research to do. We'll do it as quickly as we can. We don't want to hold it. I mean, it's going to be better to get it in your hands so you can get to where we need to get it approved.
So procedurally, I'm just walking through this. If
Send them to me.
we send you 10 questions, and 8 of them were answered, can be answered pretty straightforwardly, and 2 of them take research.
You'll get the
You
8.
don't get an answer back saying.
To the 8.
The other 2 didn't.
Correct.
We'll just do it, just tell us, that's all.
Making sure we know what the process is.
Yeah, just tell us.
It's a good question. I mean, we don't want to hold it for 2 weeks and not help.
No,
You know,
because
get you all through it.
we can't do our work without question.
And question, the Budget and Finance Committee will be involved.
Well, they've got their books. Monday, Tuesday are going to be long days.
The
Yeah.
answers and all of that, okay.
And then we pushed it to the beginning of the week. Okay, sat with the chair, Mr. Hudson, and went over. We made sure Monday, Tuesday, and that gives us Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to do any other feedback back and forth. And I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, Dennis, it's the goal by the end of the week to have whatever additional recommendations they have. I think we agreed to Thursday.
Thursday's our regular meeting, we publish the report due the 18th to the board.
So we built in the window to interact with budget and finance in case there's any changes we need to make there. And obviously, any of those changes that occur, you guys will get.
This is by close of business on the 17th,
What's that?
the report from the Budget and Finance Committee.
They're meeting on the, didn't you say the 18th then?
We're meeting on the 17th,
They meet
the
on the
report is
17th.
due the 18th.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to take a note on that. Okay. And that will give us a week to look at what
They're
their presenting before we meet on Thursday.
Yes.
We can continue to ask questions now. We don't need to wait for the
Correct. That's correct.
start working it ourselves.
And Dennis's report comes to all of us, it goes to, who does it go to, Terry? So how does it physically get
What we've
here?
agreed to is I get a first look at it one-on-one with Dennis, so I can see what the committee's recommending. So if there's any changes I can implement, we'll say it's made, not made, and then he'll then forward, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Dennis, then he's going to forward their final report to you all.
Yes, through Terry.
Through Terry, okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible we go back to the operating fund slide so I can understand?
Sure.
Can you go back?
Oh.
No. Because, okay, wait a minute. Was
You want to
that?
go to, no, I think you want this one, right? I mean, I have three of them. Tell me which one. I'll let you know where you want.
They all do the same thing. But, for instance, at 864, 236, with all due respect, I don't think it means anything.
Okay, I do. That's why I put it there.
Okay, let's get to the real numbers and go to the next one,
Okay?
okay? What we have, I see,
You have it. I mean,
yeah, I do, but you're not looking at the whole picture. Go to the next slide, please. Okay. What we're showing here is the difference in this 3 years and the difference in this 3 years.
that's correct.
But we're not showing the total. For the last 6 years, we have a deficit of 594, 392.
This slide,
Why do we-
this slide was intended to show two 3-year snapshots. If you look at the last 3 years, there seems to be a lot of question over the
You've
last.
been here 35, 40 years. I don't.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah,
If you're going to do it, go ahead and do your thing.
Okay, we're at 594, 392. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do we not have a huge deficit this year in the drainage department of about 500, what was it?
553.
Okay, so now we're up to $1 million.
That's not operating.
We've collected what in this deficit reduction plan?
I don't have that information with me.
It's around 311,000 through this year.
I don't have it with me.
I mean,
We didn't bring it with us.
Marty,
You got a budget book, I
if
think.
you're,
My point is to try to bring to light, we're going the wrong way.
Mr. Clark, respectfully, that's why I was trying to dispel here. You're factually not accurate, sir. This is fact. I put it right out, and I tell you what, when we get back together with the budgets, I will make sure everyone has a copy of the year-end statement, the audited.
I've got them
year-end.
already.
But I want to make sure everyone has it. I will go through the year-end statement and clearly point, these are the audited from our accountants. I'll be more than happy
What
to
does
do that.
our account's audited statement say for last year?
I don't, Mr.
Minus 307.
Okay, now think about it. No, wait, whoa. We're probably closer than you realize.
I'm sure we
No, minus 307. I didn't hide it, it's right there.
No, but you're not adding all this up.
Mr. Clark, respectfully, think about this. I gave all the operational pieces.
It would help me to better understand if I knew how deep I was in the mud before I shifted into four-wheel drive. You can't do a budget jumping all over the place.
That's your number.
That's not my number. My number is
Okay,
right
well,
now,
I
for the
will
last
have
6
the
years,
audited,
is
Mr. Clark,
500,000.
I have an audited financial statement. I will bring them for the benefit of the board members and allow them to look at any item. Happy to do it.
Perfect. It's going to come up to 594, 392.
6 years.
Any other questions?
Did I hear an untruth? I guess I
No,
was a ghost board member.
actually, Marty, my number was 594, 396. So we're off.
Well, then you and I are both wrong because somebody back there says it ain't true.
Okay, all right.
Not true, I didn't say that.
I heard untrue.
Okay. Let's just, the issue that we're all trying to resolve here is the budget book, understand the foundation. One of the things that I had shared with me by folks who came on the board with me 2 years ago, a year ago, and this year, saying when we got to this point in Ocean Pines, we had never really done a foundation explanation of how did it go, how does it work. Those who have been around here forever could probably have given the presentation, but some of us are brand new, some of us are less than brand new. The idea here was to give everybody an equal foundation of what were the assumptions, the business assumptions, if you will, behind how this book was built, what's in it, why it's in there. And some of these debates will happen on particular numbers, and that's going to happen, and I'm fine with that. My numbers, 4 numbers off of Marty's. But the net of this is, the purpose of this session was to make sure we were all clear on what the process was going to be, and how we were going to work it, and how the questions were going to get answered, and all of that, because in my personal opinion, part of the process that I oversaw the last 2 years needed to be tightened up a lot more than it was, and so that we were very clear, everybody got all the answers, everybody got all the information, and we all knew where it came from. So that we all have the same starting point, we have complete alignment with the Budget and Finance Committee on the process and the procedures and their involvement in this, and that was my intent for having us get together today. The stop sign thing, you definitely need to meet with me, because most of my book doesn't have stop signs in it. Ergo, the questions I started throwing at you, and you refusing to answer them because they weren't in the process. So, fair enough. That's where we are at this point. Does anybody have any questions on the process, the dates, how this is going to work, what we're doing, on that issue? Content of the book and how it's made up, anything?
Things in this book that I have questions on, like math that doesn't work or something like that. You want me to put these in an orderly fashion?
And then share them with all of
And
us
send them in.
Yeah.
and to Terry. So,
Yeah, making sure everybody gets
yeah,
it.
make sure everybody gets them.
We may all end up with the same question and then we just
Okay?
answer it one time.
And we'll all see what everybody's sending in.
Right, we'll all see what everybody's sending,
Yeah.
and we'll all get the same answers at the same time.
Yeah.
And we gotta look at your computer issue to see, because you weren't able to download some stuff, so we gotta make sure that that gets fixed. You weren't able to download some of the stuff.
Sounds like a personal problem, sir.
I was gonna say, send over this weekend.
Oh, God. We'll get through it all.
I'm next on the computer, cares for yours.
Okay. Good. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, no,
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Oh, no.
Oh, can I?
Yes, you did. Thank God your aim wasn't better.
I was trying to name it.